Lots of people watching our videos assume that we are self-sufficient.
Probably because we have animals and we grow our own vegetables.
But we're not self-sufficient, and we're not really trying to be self-sufficient either. So we're going to explore that in a couple of videos.
Our general goal here is not self-sufficiency, it's biodiversity.
That's why we dig ponds and we plant trees and we keep bees and hedges and things like that. It helps everything to have a mixture of plants and animals here. The more variety we have around, the more resilient and interesting and beautiful it all is.
And we get to eat some of it too.
But self-sufficiency is a really interesting subject, and we do get asked about it all the time. So this is just the first of a little series of videos. We're going to be looking at
energy and materials and transport and clothing and finances in other videos if anyone's interested.
We do grow quite a lot of the food that we eat here.
Potatoes and beans and onions and kale and
black currants,
grapes,
garlic,
apples,
leeks, herbs,
honey, eggs, lamb, milk,
pork.
And we milk the sheep for milk and cheese. We also harvest wild blackberries and elderberries and seaweed and fish from the sea, which all sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
And of course, it is good. It's really very good. And we have a great life, great diet. But when you list the things that we can't grow here, then it becomes a lot more obvious why self-sufficiency is tricky. And that's the main point really. This area, the west of Ireland, is totally unsuitable for some crops.
Of course we can't grow mangoes and bananas here, we're too far north. But most importantly, we can't even grow grain here, or maize.
And that's a big deal. Well, we can plant them, and they do grow, oats and wheat and barley and corn, but we can't reliably ripen them, because it's just too wet and cold here.
So if we only lived on what we grew here, we'd never eat pancakes again, or cakes, or tarts, or little puddings, or lovely things, and wouldn't that be terrible?
Yes, it would actually, it would be terrible. Even apples aren't reliable here, and it's taken 10 years for our first harvest of chestnuts, and they're not even in the bag yet. Fingers crossed on those. Yes, in theory we could put up enormous polytunnels, and except that they will cost a lot of money, but that would in effect create a new climate here, and we've done a little bit of that. Even this is our tomato shed for now.
Tomatoes, yeah.
Some tomatoes.
And up to a point that makes sense, and we do grow things like squashes and tomatoes and grapes in our small tunnel. But for most things it makes much more sense to go to the market and buy olives and flour and apricots and chocolate and coffee and tea and bananas and wine and oil and nuts. If we only ate what we grow here, we would not actually starve, but we would have a very boring and restricted diet.
And we may actually become chronically deficient in some vitamins and minerals.
On the other hand, our area does grow grass and trees very well because it's relatively mild here and damp. Some would say it's wet. But as you know, humans can't eat grass and trees. We don't have the digestive system for that. So people here have traditionally kept livestock that can eat grass. And then we eat the livestock or drink their milk.
So that's what we do too. We keep sheep. They eat the grass, and we use their milk, and we eat some of them too.
We would keep cows too, but we don't have the space. Goats would work here too, but sheep are better, I think.
Now, for some of you will be living in places that have a much more suitable climate for growing all sorts of vegetables. Even the east side of Ireland is a lot drier and much better soil than it is here. And if you live in France or Germany or big chunks of the United States, it's easy, and you should be very
Happy.
happy. Yes, because we're jealous of all that you can grow.
But like we said, we're not trying to grow everything we eat here. Even if that was possible, it'd take up so much of our time. And there's other things we'd like to do.
Plus, we have to pay a mortgage every week.
Yes. And plenty of other bills too.
We really like digging and planting and weeding and harvesting, but they're not the only things we like to do.
But we do grow and harvest the most cost-effective vegetables, not really for any ideological reasons, but because it's fun and we like to do that. And it's really interesting and gives us a much better understanding of where humans fit into the environment.
And here's one last important point. It's really hard to grow all your own food, even for a year or two. But it becomes much more difficult if your actions are having a long-term negative effect on the soil. If you're taking out some nutrients from the fields, as farming generally does, how are you going to replace them?
We have farmyard manure, but that means keeping animals. We have access to seaweed, but that means transporting it back from the sea.
There are many examples around us of how difficult it is to farm sustainably, without causing long-term damage to the environment. Everywhere we look around here, there is so much evidence of long-term damage. There are plenty of mountainsides with no soil left on them and no trees, caused directly by overpopulation, overgrazing, and a series of forestry clearances, as well as climate change, of course.
Many species are now extinct in Ireland because of the actions of people, mostly indirectly, but sometimes intentionally. So not only have humans made the environment much worse for other species over the millennia, we've also made it much harder for us too.
People once struggled hard to grow their food on these hills, but at least they could. Nowadays it would be virtually impossible. The term self-sufficiency is used very freely, but the reality of growing your own food, which is just one part of self-sufficiency, is really tough. Even if you could do it, grow enough variety of foods to keep you healthy, it would probably take all your time and energy. And if you try to do it without fuels and machinery, without importing nutrients from elsewhere, without running down to the shop sometimes, and without doing long-term damage to your patch of land, then hats off to you, because we couldn't do it.
Anyway, that was a brief look at food growing.
There's Robin looking at us over the camera.
Yeah, I know, it's Robin. Hi, Robin. Do you want to be in the film? As we said, we'll be looking at other subjects in the series too.
What do you think? What foods would you miss most if you couldn't grow them and you couldn't buy them locally? Chocolate, I think.
Yeah, bounty bars, coffee.
Yes, exactly. Coffee, beer,
Yeah.
toothpaste. Toothpaste?
Toothpaste. You don't eat toothpaste, do you? Or do you? Maybe you do. Yeah.
Okay, how about you?
Yeah, what about you?